A scandal is rocking the college basketball world, and it could have ramifications for Syracuse down the road. Welcome inside the CitrusTV studios for a webisode edition. We're breaking down what's going on with this scandal. I'm Drew Carter alongside Matt Liberman and Tyler Aki. And guys, so far right now, here's what's happened. The FBI has come out with charges against assistant coaches from 4 schools, Auburn, USC, Oklahoma State, and Arizona, charging them of corruption, bribery, fraud, call it whatever you want. Basically, Adidas paying players to go to these schools and be funneled to them after they leave the schools. Rick Pitino also has been implicated in this case, currently on unpaid leave as the head coach of Louisville. What do you guys think of this?
Well, Drew, the first thing is the fact that you have such a high-profile, successful coach such as Pitino being placed on unpaid administrative leave. It pretty much shows Louisville did something bad, and they know it. And when you look at this scandal, this is a scandal that can really rock the college basketball world. It could bring down the entire system.
And if you're Rick Pitino, this makes no sense why you were doing this in the first place. I mean, look at job security across the nation, all right? Rick Pitino's in an elite class of guys who just can't be fired. I'd put him in a class with Jim Boeheim, Coach K, I'd even throw Roy Williams, Mark Few from Gonzaga, and I'm sure there's a couple more I'm forgetting. But he was in an unfireable territory, and he did the one thing that he could have done to lose his job.
This is now also the second Louisville scandal in the last 3 years, again, going back to the 2015 prostitution case. So Louisville really in a bad light right now. They will probably get one of the roughest NCAA sanctions in history.
Yeah, that's the thing I wanted to touch on next. For Rick Pitino, he's currently on administrative leave technically. His lawyers come out and say he's effectively been fired. But let's go back to Louisville as a program. 2 scandals in the last 3 years. Guys, could we be looking at a death penalty here?
To me, I don't see a death penalty. It makes no sense. Look at the Baylor football program, the Penn State football program. Those are still up and running. This is not nearly the type of implications that it had on human lives that were being affected and really unjust towards as this is right now. I mean, these players are given money under the table. That's not nearly as bad as rape or whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, I would have to agree with you as well. I don't think this is anything that will bring down the entire program. It will bring plenty of sanctions for the next maybe even decade or so, where you have 2 investigations going on in the last 3 years, but no, this will not bring down the death penalty.
Yeah, Louisville will definitely get hit pretty hard, and they're already losing a couple of recruits. We take a look at some guys coming in the next few years. Anthony Simons, a 5-star shooting guard. Courtney Ramey, a 4-star point guard. They have already said they're going to decommit. Oklahoma State has already lost one guy, Antoine Jones. I mean, what does this impact have on the rest of the ACC? Well,
with Antoine Jones, that's the big one for Syracuse because he was a guy that the Orange was giving looks to, and he doesn't necessarily fit that prototypical Syracuse player, but I mean, this is a class of 2018. You're still building around guys like Darius Baisley, Buddy Boeheim, and you add a guy like Antoine Jones in there, another top 100 guy. You could really be in business and rolling now that his recruitment's reopened.
And don't forget a 5-star recruit, Brian Browen, now suspended by Louisville. So that's another big name. When you look at the ACC, Louisville is pretty much a depleted program now that won't have much. So even if you don't get any extra recruits, Drew, that's another team that really can't challenge you anymore.
And not to mention a postseason ban probably in store.
It looks like this is the beginning of the end of Louisville as kind of a high-profile basketball program. Let's move over to a different ACC school, and now Miami, which has not been named by the FBI just yet, but Miami has come out and in a statement released on Twitter, the university has confirmed that it was one of the schools in the report that has been facing these charges. And for the University of Miami, guys, big reason why that affects Syracuse, why SU fans should be concerned about that, is Jalen Carey, a point guard in this upcoming class, been recruited by these 2 schools heavily. We think it's down to those 2 schools for his commitment. Do you think this maybe sways him?
I think it would have to. When you look at it, if Miami's going to get a postseason ban, potentially could be facing a bunch of different sanctions, why wouldn't you go to Syracuse then? If you're down to these 2 schools and one of them is going to be absolutely decimated by sanctions, would be smart to go to the one that doesn't have the postseason ban, that won't have probably scholarships lost, and that might not lose a head coach.
And remember, too, Malachi Richardson, what is the reason why he was drafted in the 2015 draft? It was because he had that unbelievable postseason. Jalen Carey, this is just extra potential games for him. And if he's not going to get that at Miami, and it's pretty much down to Syracuse and Miami at this point, according to people that we've talked to, if you're not going to get that with the Hurricanes, there's no reason to not go orange.
Okay, and we'll stick with the Syracuse theme right now. General impact on Syracuse, and also another thing I want you guys to touch on is right now it's just Adidas. but there are rumblings that maybe Nike could be next, and Nike sponsors Syracuse sports, so general implications for Syracuse here.
Well, yes, Nike has gotten a subpoena, so they are getting involved. There are plenty of Nike schools, as Nike, again, is the biggest brand for colleges around the country in terms of athletics. So when you look at Nike, there are plenty of schools that are going to be involved, but Drew, according to my sources, Syracuse is not going to be involved in the Nike investigation. There are supposed to be a bunch more schools coming out in the next few days, and Syracuse, according to the source, is not on that list.
But keep in mind, this is not just clothing brands. This is agents, this is advisors, because if you look at a school like Arizona, they're not an Adidas school, but they're already under the gun from this investigation as well. So it extends beyond the clothing brands.
Yeah, and one of the other big things when you are looking at this entire scandal is the fact that it's really 2 scandals with 4 different parties involved. This is probably the biggest NCAA basketball scandal in history.
And if you think about Syracuse as well, we just talked about how Louisville, ridden by scandal, same story for Syracuse. If they get brought down with this, big penalties coming for the Orange. But as of now, maybe even positive effects for Syracuse basketball. Again, scandal all over the college basketball world. Maybe some potential ramifications for Syracuse as well. Make sure you follow us on Twitter at CitrusTV Sports for all your coverage of this as it unfolds. We will have you covered with all the latest news as it pertains to Syracuse. He's Tyler Aki. He's Matt Liberman. I'm Drew Carter. Thanks so much for watching.